2025, there were nearly 116,000 hate crime offences that people were charged with in your country. It ranged from comments about migrants, displaying England's flag, silent prayer near abortion clinics, perhaps Herbert Marcuse's call for intolerance of conservatism is now on full display.
Yeah, Britain has a very serious problem with censorship. Let's call it what it is. It's censorship. The issue I've always had with hate speech laws is twofold. Firstly, they do nothing to tackle actual hatred. The things that all of us can agree are hateful ideas like anti-Semitism or racism against black people or the use of the N-word in a public setting, all those kinds of things that we all agree are racist and profoundly undesirable in our societies. Hate speech laws do nothing to tackle that. And in fact, they can often exacerbate those problems. If you look at France, France is a classic example of this because France brought in legislation around 30 years ago, I think, to make Holocaust denial a crime. So you're not allowed to express denial of the Holocaust in France. Now, I agree, Holocaust denial is a racist ideology. It's a hateful ideology born of a loathing for the Jewish people that poses as a kind of science, poses as a pseudoscience. But France now has one of the worst problems in Europe with Holocaust denial, because when you bring in that kind of legislation, you don't tackle the problem itself, which is that in certain Arab communities around Paris in particular, who feel very dislocated from the French Republic, who feel very suspicious of Western values, of Republican values, Holocaust denial is very serious there. Anti-Semitism is very serious there. And you don't tackle it with censorship. You need something firmer, something harder. You need a greater assertion of national values and a greater willingness to tackle regressive thinking, but you don't tackle it by silencing it. All that does is push it underground and make it seem like forbidden fruit. The way to get one over on the French state is by denying the Holocaust. That's the kind of culture you create. But then the second reason I'm against hate speech laws is that they also turn perfectly legitimate moral views into hatred, which might then be punished by the government. So, for example, if you don't like Islam, you think Islam's a rubbish religion, that is now potentially seen as hate speech. Or if you were opposed to same-sex marriage, as many Christians were, and many Muslims were, that's seen as homophobia. Or think about what's happened to gender-critical feminists in the UK and other countries, including Australia. They've been called transphobes and bigots. They've been blacklisted from university campuses. They've been harassed in the streets and violently attacked for saying that men are men and women are women. So we've now reached a situation where biological truth has been reimagined as hate speech. So when you create this empire of hate policing, this empire of censorship, firstly, you do nothing to tackle real hatred in your society, and in fact, you can inflame it. And secondly, you criminalize a whole array of entirely legitimate moral, political viewpoints. So it is absolutely the worst road to go down in terms of thinking about the problems in our society.